So welcome everybody to NOVA Scribes. I'm super excited about this evening. I'm Brian Tarallo. We've also got a couple of other organizers here. We've got Rachel Thompson. Rachel, go ahead and wave. There she is. Hi, Rachel. Rachel's in a dark room in Virginia because she's dog sitting right now. So let's do show of hands. If this is your first time attending NOVA Scribes, go ahead and raise your hand for me. Let me see, let me see, let me see. Shay and Hannah, it looks like, and Janet. Nice to have you. Welcome. Just a quick overview. NOVA Scribes is a free and open forum for visual practitioners to share their knowledge. And when I say visual practitioners, I am talking about, of course, graphic recorders, graphic facilitators, scribes, sketchnoters, UX designers, you name it. If you use visuals in order to move others, this is the group. We called ourselves NOVA Scribes because it started in Northern Virginia. You get it? Nova, Northern Virginia. But, you know, right now we've actually got almost 950 members, which is really hard for me to believe. And we're all over the world, including we got Tim Hammonds, who I think is calling from home from him, which is totally on the other side of the world. Couple things that are coming up. So just to let you know what's happening in the world of NOVA Scribes, we've got some really amazing events that are happening. I may not be able to tell you them because my computer doesn't want it to load. I wonder what will break today, and today it will be Meetup. All right, here we go. So tonight, of course, we're doing Procreate Tips with Procreate Pro Tips with Malgosia Kostecka. I'll do a little bit more of an introduction for her in a minute. Rachel has launched a couple of series that you should know about. One of them is Let's Lunch Virtually. So if you want to just like eat on camera, I mean, we do that. It's okay in that context. But with some colleagues, friends, you know, get over the isolation that a lot of us are feeling right now. Check out her Let's Lunch Virtually series, and you can go to meetup.com/nova-scribes and get to that. I'll drop the link into chat so that you can find your way there. The other thing that this is brand new that Rachel's just launched is virtual co-working. So if you are the kind of person, you're working on some side projects, some studio projects, projects from home, and you just like having other people around and with you when you work, feel free to dial into the virtual co-working. There's no agenda to it. It's just working with other people on the Zoom call, other visual practitioners. And it can be a great way to say, hey, how do you draw something weird like leadership? Okay. A few other workshops that we've got planned. So Lee Gimple is going to be teaching how to add ineffective online networking. That's going to be on May 18th. On May 20th, Christina Merkley is coming back to NOVA Scribes. Barb, you'll be interested in this one. She's teaching visual systemic constellation work. And I'm really excited about that, mapping out the networks of relationships between people and entities. Visual coaching with Nevada Lane. Nevada Lane is like the visual practitioner I want to grow up to be someday. She's going to be doing using visual thinking to grow your leadership. That's on May 25th. And then Lauren Green is actually launching her Facilitating with Visuals course. She's designing a whole Kajabi course, and she's launching it right here on NOVA Scribes on June 1st, which is awesome. Angela Krieg, Angela would wave if she wasn't sharing her screen right now, is doing urban sketching for visual practitioners on June 3rd. And then this one I'm really excited about. So on June 29th, Jamie, is a friend of mine from the Pacific Northwest, is going to be teaching us Northwest Coast indigenous art, how to draw with those ovoids, you know, like if you've ever seen like those amazing pictures of orcas and whales and seals and things like that. He's going to be teaching us how to draw that stuff. Okay. But tonight, I have the honor of introducing you to one of my best friends, Malgosia Kostecka. Malgosia and I stood in the fire of teaching, facilitating virtual collaboration to like, it must have been over 1,000 people, like in the height of things.
Yeah, we got a good amount in.
Formerly of the Grove, and she has just been leading the way in terms of digital scribing. And with that, I will shut up and I'll turn it over to you. Malgosia, take it away.
Thanks, Brian. It's nice to get to be back. When I joined, I was like, we're teaching the facilitating virtual collaboration class. I got a flashback to that. So thank you for hosting me. It's so nice to see all of you, to see familiar faces and to see new faces. Thanks for taking the time to be here. And I'm excited to get to dive into Procreate. And I'm really hoping that this is a space where I can share some things that have been really helpful for me, but we can also reserve some time for open Q&A. And I think that's a nice way of learning together. If somebody has a particular question, usually somebody else has that same question. So I'm hoping that we can kind of go through some of those things, and already great resources are being shared. Phil dropped something in the chat. If you scroll up, it's a keypad for Procreate that gives you control. Super cool. So I'm hoping that we can gather some new resources while we're here together. But I'll just start by sharing my screen. I have a little bit of a presentation to kind of go through that'll lead us into a tutorial, but this will be engaging. So I'll be asking you to drop questions into chat or responses. And if you have a question at any point, I know that Brian will be monitoring chat, or feel free to just go off mute and bring that into the room. Really nice to get the questions as we go through. So I'll just jump right in. This is going to be focused on Procreate. So if you're new to Procreate, if you've been using Procreate, this is the space for you. And specifically how to use Procreate for digital graphic recording, for infographics, studio illustrations, really in your visual practice, how to use this tool to best serve you. And Procreate's a tool that I've been using now for, I would say, 3 years. I went off of it for a little bit because I wasn't convinced that they didn't have this one feature I was looking for, and then they added it, and I swooped back in, and I've been using it ever since. So I've been really exploring what's possible with this application, and this past year has given me a lot of time to just dive into it. So I'm going to start by just introducing myself for those of you who don't, who I haven't gotten a chance to meet yet. My name is Malgosia, and there's the phonetic pronunciation of my name. It's the I sounds like an H, and I am currently based in Seattle, Washington. I moved here in about September of last year, and I feel like everyone fooled me with Seattle because they said it's super rainy, but today is a beautiful sunny day. I feel like living here has made me appreciate the sun even more. So this, I'm based in a neighborhood called Queen Anne, and the spring is going off here. It's been really gorgeous to get to live here. And one of the things that brings me a lot of joy is collecting leaves. I've been doing that for about 10 plus years, and it's just something that I feel like helps me get centered and grounded and gets me outside. So I know we dropped in where everyone is from, or if you haven't, I'd love to just use this moment to see where everyone's from and something that brings you joy, just so we can kind of connect with who's in the room. So just go ahead and take a moment in the chat, put your name, where you're located, and one thing that you really enjoy doing. Just be nice to get to see that from everybody. Nice. Walks and naps, absolutely. Yes, the gardening, outdoor coffee, excellent. We got a good number of folks in here, so just nice to get connected up right off the bat. Excellent. We'll keep those coming in. But just wanted to give you a little orientation about myself, and I wanted to also share a little bit of how I got here and how I got to doing this work. And specifically the digital scribing part of it. So for me, it all started by taking a class at the Grove, and that was in 2015. And after that class, I just knew this is what I wanted to do, and I started my own business. This was actually my first logo because those were the only kinds of people that I could draw, were these Apple people. So, oh, nice. There's an annotate going on.
Sorry
Brian, I'll
about
need
that.
your help with that. All good. That's actually a pretty cool feature. no worries. That might actually be something we utilize later down the line. So good to know that that's a possibility. Anyways, I started my own business and was really only doing that for about a year before I got to connect with the Grove and got to work with them as a consultant. And I would say that's where I really learned everything that I know about graphic recording and facilitation, and just a lot of love and respect for the folks at the Grove. And that's also where I really started learning about digital facilitation and digital graphic recording. And I had the pleasure of getting to learn from Rachel Smith, who is, in my eyes, the godmother of virtual facilitation and recording. She was doing it before we even had a good stylus to use. She was recording with her finger, and it actually looked good, which is crazy. I tried doing it and I wasn't able to pull it off like Rachel. But that's where I spent a lot of time really learning this craft and learning from the masters. I see Lori Darnell is in the room tonight, who I have learned so much from. And so that's where I started doing a lot more exploration in virtual, and started to practice on my iPad and got into Procreate. And this past year, I actually shifted over to working at AWS. And I'm working as part of their executive visioning team. So getting to help with graphically capturing visioning sessions between executives, and really bringing the visual aspect to those kinds of meetings. And it's wonderful to see that this kind of work is being adopted more in the corporate setting, and just seeing how valuable it is, and how folks are just responding to it makes me really hopeful about the future of the field, just having more opportunities for our community to really expand and use their skills. And throughout all of that, I have been, online, I feel like I go by Illuma Stories, partially because my name is really long and hard to type into a search bar. But that's really what I started, that as a way to really gather all of the tips and tricks that I've learned, and trying to package those up into videos or blog posts to share those with the community. So that's how you can really find me online. And that's what has just been a passion project, really, of getting to consolidate some of my learning and get to share that, and have sessions like this where we can come together and exchange information and learn. So that's a little bit of my journey and how I got started. And I just want to show you some samples of the kinds of digital graphic recording that I've done. I always like to see people's work, and just to show you a little bit of the work that I've done specifically in the past year. So here's one that, and I know this might be a little bit hard to see, so I'll actually turn off my project canvas mode here and zoom in here. So this was one that I did this past year, and this was for a speaker named Amber Cabral, who is an incredible speaker, and she does presentations all about inclusion, equity, and diversity. So this was a session that was about 90 minutes, and I got to record her going through her presentation. We actually took this graphic afterwards and split it up into smaller graphics, and then embedded that into a book that she wrote that came out last year called Allies and Advocates, that I super recommend to anyone who's really wanting to learn more about inclusion, equity, and diversity. And this was fun what I love about virtual is that there's no limit to how big your canvas can be. So you can kind of, if you feel like you're running out of space, you can just stretch it out a little bit. So that definitely happened here. It was not supposed to be this big, but there was just a lot of good content, and it was nice to be able to expand and not make it feel too crammed on the page. So that was a session that I really enjoyed doing. And let me just zoom back out here. And something else that I've been working on in the past year is doing these, what I'm calling visual summaries for some of my favorite speakers. So people who I feel like have made a really big impact on me with what they're doing in the world. And you might recognize this person. This is Amanda Gorman, who performed an inaugural poem called The Hill We Climb. And I felt very compelled to record part of that. And so I've been working on those as well. I would say this is more studio illustration, doing graphic capture, listening, capturing the words, and then going back in and adding the graphics and adding the picture. So this one wasn't captured live like the one above it was. So a little bit of post-production work in that one. I always like to call that out because it's nice to know what happens live and what's happening afterwards. The last one that I have here is, this is actually one of my favorite projects because this was getting to interview a couple who's now married, all about how they met. And if you're a Survivor fan, the show Survivor, you might actually know these two. This is Sierra and Joe from Survivor. They were like season, I don't know, 2014 was when they were on together. So I was just fangirling out because I love I love Survivor, and it was so nice to just sit down with them and capture their story. And it was really fun for them to highlight some of their favorite memories and get to really focus on the times that they want to remember because they wanted to have an artifact to hang up in their house. So just wanted to show the different kinds of projects that I've been working on, ranging from live kind of keynote presentations. A lot of the stuff that I've been doing over the past year, sadly, I cannot share just because it's confidential. But what I love about virtual scribing is that there's just so much that you can do virtually that you can't do on paper. Like the middle graphic with the darker background, that just, oh, I mean, hey, I'm not going to say you can't do it on paper. However, it would be quite hard to get that same effect. So I've just really enjoyed seeing what's possible with virtual, even though I do miss my markers and I'm excited to get back to those. But really, really fun to see the different kinds of capture. And the flow lines have just kind of developed over the past couple years as something that I enjoy capturing around. It's not always what I go to, but I guess in these examples, it's very present. So that's just been something in terms of a piece that I really enjoy. So Procreate, I really started to dive into Procreate, and I, especially last year when the pandemic hit and our work was shifted to virtual pretty drastically, I wanted to start putting out resources to the community. So some of these you might have already seen and you might have utilized. If not, there's, except for the brushes, the other two are free to download. It's a contribution only if you would like. So I did that intentionally to make those accessible to the community, really wanting to share those kinds of resources so that everyone could really get started on working virtually if they hadn't already. So the ebook is really about a nice start. If you haven't done any kind of digital graphic recording yet, that's where I would start. It kind of walks you through the process that I go through, at least in terms of preparation and what I do to get myself set up on my iPad. And then Procreate Protips is something that I released a little bit earlier this year, wanting to really capture some of my favorite things that I found in Procreate. Some of them super simple, and it's just like a button that I had never pressed before, and then I realized is what I've been looking for the whole time. So that's a series of a couple of videos, pretty quick to make your way through, that will just give you some more knowledge on Procreate. So if you haven't checked those out, I would definitely take a look at those because that'll give you some more information about Procreate and just some of the things that you can do. And lastly, the brushes, color palettes. I'm always on the hunt for brushes and developed a set that I use all the time. So the brushes that are there, I actually those are my go-tos. And I wanted to package those up and make those available just because I know how painful it can be to find the right brushes. And it's a very personal thing. So if you're still trying to find your brushes, don't worry, you'll get there. It's just it's kind of like finding your markers. You just kind of got to test out a couple to find them. But those are some resources for you. You can, I'm sure I'll send out the links after the session, and they're actually in the meetup invitation, so you can find all of those. But today, I really wanted to come together and do a demo on one of my favorite features in Procreate. And I've been using this all the time, and that is creating stamp brushes. You might have already learned how to create stamp brushes. You might not have. Either way, we'll be creating some tonight so that you can really start to build out an icon library in Procreate. And what a stamp brush is think of it as a drawing that you've done that you can then immediately have with just the tap of your stylus. So it allows you to really build out your icon library. And I specifically use these when I'm pre-populating my digital chart, and I don't want to have to draw a computer for the 1000th time. And so I've just created a stamp brush for it. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. But first I want to pause and see if there are any questions before we get into the tutorial. So I'll just stop for a minute and see if anyone's got a question.
You can either use chat or take yourself off mute. We'll see it.
Everyone's like, no, let's get to, let's get to it. Let's get to working. I hear you. Okay. If you have a question, just drop it in as we go. I'm going to take myself out of Project Canvas. I've been doing this whole presentation in Procreate. That's actually something that I found to be really nice if you want to draw while you're doing a presentation. I've just stacked all of those slides in here. And so that's a way I've been using Procreate lately that I've really enjoyed. It's kind of like PowerPoint, but you can draw on it with your iPad. The PowerPoint app on the iPad, I don't know, Brian, you're more of a PowerPoint user than I am. Is it good? Have you used it?
I've never used it on my iPad. I only use it on my Cintiq. Yeah, if I was using
Oh,
my
okay.
iPad, I would go with Procreate.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can definitely create presentations in here and draw on them. So just think about how you can utilize layers to create interactive presentations. And the way that I got these images in here is through an application called Canva. If you haven't heard of Canva, it's like having a graphic designer in your pocket. It's where they have all these kind of pre-made templates that look really good, and you just get to kind of edit the text and add a couple of your own components. And so I made templates in Canva, and then I dropped them into my Procreate. Yes, I see there are some Canva users, and it's amazing. It's almost like one of those things where I'm like, don't let the secret get out, because then everyone is going to know about it. But that's also great because Canva's amazing. So just a nice way of using Procreate in a different way than just graphic recording. But today we're going to talk about stamp brushes. So I've gone off of my project canvas mode so that you can see my screen. And I'm just going to start with a blank canvas. So this is a tutorial that we'll do together. So I see a lot of you, based on how everyone's head is down, I can see that you're on your iPad. And some folks are drawing. Very cool to see. I'm just scrolling through. So what we're going to do is we are going to draw something, and we're going to turn it into a stamp brush. And it's actually really simple. The first time you do it, it takes a minute to kind of figure it out, but then the more that you do it, I've found that I can make them in probably under 2 minutes at this point. So you can really start to build out a solid library and create some brushes. Does the size of the canvas matter? No, it doesn't. It does not. You can use any size canvas, but the size of your drawing does matter. So that is something that you do want to keep in mind. All right, so I'm gonna just make sure I'm on the right layer. I have an empty layer here. And I actually want to make sure I have two layers. So one for my drawing, you'll see these two layers at the bottom, and one for a background. So go ahead and create two layers. If you don't know how to name a layer, you just tap on it, and then the first option there is rename. So you can rename it whatever you'd like it. I'm calling mine drawing and background. Okay, I'll just give you a second there. And we're going to start on the background layer. So that should be below your drawing layer. And the way that you move layers around is you just long press and then you can move them wherever you would like. So just make sure that your background layer is below your drawing layer. And then we're going to make that layer, we're going to fill it with a dark color. So we want this layer to be, I'm going to use this nice dark blue. You can use a black, just make sure it's a dark color. And the way that we're going to fill the page here is I have my dark blue selected, and I'm just going to drag from the color, from this color dot up top, and I'm just going to drag it right onto my canvas. I'll just do that one more time. I'm going to take this dot up in the top right and just drag it onto my canvas to fill it with color. Okay. Now that we have that, we're going to leave that background. That's all done. And you're going to go to your drawing layer. And the drawing layer is where we're going to want to use a lighter color for our drawing. So I'm just going to use a white. And one of the brushes that I have just been loving, that's actually on all of your, it's pre-popped into your Procreate. Let me see where it is. I believe it's in the, yes, it's the inking. Dry ink brush is my new favorite. I have been loving the dry ink brush. So that's one that you have if you want to test it out. It's got this, I don't know, it's got this grainy kind of chalkboard like feel. What I like about it is it's very forgiving. I can draw really loose and it still looks good. So I don't have to worry about the lines being perfectly connected or anything like that. So I'm using the dry ink brush, but feel free to use whatever brush you would like. Just make sure that you're not drawing on your background layer. You want to make sure that you're on a separate layer. And this part is totally up to you what you draw. Let's see, what am I have to decide what I'm going to draw here. I'm going to start with something simple because we'll make two of these just to get in the groove of it. So I'm just going to draw something that I feel like I use all the time, and it's kind of like a piece of paper, a binder. Whenever people are talking about important documents, I feel like this is a go-to icon of mine. So I'm going to draw that as what I want to turn into my stamp brush. And this is where I mentioned size matters. So I do want to fill up a good portion of this canvas. I don't want to draw this small. I really want the scale to be more like this. So I really want to fill up the space with my drawing. Okay, so I'll just walk you through how I draw a piece of paper. I know everyone has a different way of drawing paper. It's always fun to see. I really start with a slightly diagonal line at the top. And then I extend from the corners these two curved lines. One and then two. So it's kind of at an angle. It's almost like the piece of paper is floating down onto a desk is how I see it. And then I'm going to connect those at the bottom. And I want to make this look like there's a couple sheets here, like it's not just a solo piece of paper hanging out. So I'm just going to mimic this kind of L shape on the left-hand side, and whoops, and I'll just mimic that right under. You know, I kind of got that dotted line underneath, but I'm okay with that. I actually kind of like that. So just kind of mimicking that L shape to make it seem like there's another sheet right below it. And you can connect these or not, the edges here. Sometimes I don't like to connect them. The eye kind of fills that in anyways. And I'm going to make this into kind of, I don't know, binder. That's make them seem like they're connected. And then maybe I'll add like, I don't know, a box here for a title, maybe some text, just some details. And make it look really important with these little with those little starburst lines. So that's I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to make it super complicated. This is something that I want to be pretty universal. Maybe you don't even fill it in with anything inside, so you can write something in there. Totally your choice. You can even be doing a completely different drawing. That's the fun thing about stamp brushes. So this next part, once you have your drawing, and even if you're not done, just pause for a second. You can always go back and make it more detailed, but let's just start with one that's a little bit more simple. I want to make sure that my drawing is perfectly centered on my screen. So I'm going to click on the arrow at the very top, the move tool. And since this is the only thing on the layer, that's the only thing I'm moving. And I want to guide this, and I'll see those guidelines to where it is perfectly in the center. There it is. And then when I'm done, I just click on that arrow again to place it. Okay, Sarah, I see that you're not getting those guidelines. Okay, that might be a setting that we need to enable on your end. So we'll go through there. For now, just do your best to kind of find the middle of the page for your drawing. And if you drew something and it's really small, the way that you can make it bigger is, again, with the move tool, just select that, and then you can drag one of these one of these corners out to make it a little bit bigger. So I want this to fit nicely on the canvas, be pretty big. All right. Does anyone need more time before we move on to the next part? Because I don't want to leave anyone behind before we go into the brush studio. That's where it's nice to all be on the same page before we get in there. Okay, I see somebody has their paper up. I'm good. Excellent. All right. Okay, next step, we're going to make a copy of this image. So the way that we're going to do that is with a 3-finger swipe down on your screen. So go ahead and use 3 fingers, swipe down. All 3 have to come into contact with your screen. So if you don't see this little menu pop up, try again. And then I'm going to click copy. Okay, this is really important. If you don't copy it, then you'll have to kind of go back and do this part again. So again, 3-finger swipe down and then copy. Okay, this is the fun part where we're going to go into the brush studio, and we're going to use one of the brushes that's already in your Procreate to make a stamp brush out of this. So go ahead and open up your brush library, and you're going to go down to your let's see, where is it? It's up here, my spray paints folder. There's a folder that you have called spray paints. Go ahead and open that up. And there's a brush in there called Drip. That's the one that we're going to utilize as our template for making stamp brushes. Now, Procreate went through an update, and I used to know how to make stamp brushes, no problem. And then they updated it, and I was like, oh no, my method for making stamp brushes does not work any longer. And then I found the Drip brush, and I was like, this looks like an image. So essentially why we're using this as a template is because this is an image of a spray, of a spray can, or a spray can kind of nozzle. And that's what we're trying to mimic here, is having an image as the brush instead of a line or, you know, a couple of patterns. We're trying to get one solid image. So that's why we're using this particular brush. So we're going to make a copy of it. You can see I have one copy above it just in case anything happens and it accidentally delete the one below it. So you're going to swipe to the right. Sorry, is that I always get this part mixed up. You're going to swipe to the left. Right? This is where I'm totally dyslexic with this kind of stuff. Brian, is that right? To the left. Thank you. Okay. And you'll see an option to duplicate your brush. You're going to do that. If you're paranoid like me, you might create an extra copy. Why not? And once you have a copy of that, you're going to click on the brush, and that'll bring you into the brush studio. If this is your first time in here, this is an awesome place. And Procreate really expanded the brush studio in the update that they did about a year ago. And so there's a lot more features in here, which is kind of overwhelming, but also pretty awesome to just play around with stuff. So this is where we're really going to bring in that copy of the image and make it into a brush. So you'll see that sidebar menu, and we're going to go to shape. So go ahead and open up shape. It's the third one down. And you'll see here that there's a shape source, and it's that spray can blast, whatever you want to call that. There's this little edit button right off to the right, to the upper right of it, and you're going to click on that edit button. Once you're in here, there's an import button at the top right. And when you click on that, there's the possibility for you to paste. And remember when we made that copy of your drawing, that's where we get to paste it in. There it is. If you don't see your drawing, that means you got to get out of the brush studio, go back and make another copy of it to bring it over here. All right, and there's a couple of other ways that you could do this. Like you can import a photo, a file, a source library. So that's where you get those really fun patterns that some people have when they use Procreate, like a grid line pattern or a wood pattern. That's where you can put those in. Okay.
Malgosia, I'm noticing
Yeah.
in chat actually the same thing that happened to mine. If you take a look, when I pasted mine in, see how it got a little squished? Any idea what's going
I
on there?
do.
Looks like it
I
happened to
do see
Angela
that.
too.
Okay, I do see that it got a little squished. Let's see. And you copied the drip brush?
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of is I had a very, very long canvas. I'm wondering if maybe
Oh,
it
okay.
did that. Angela, was that the same? Yeah, Sarah's nodding. Okay. So maybe
Okay,
it's
so
better to use a square
test
canvas?
that out. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
do a test and do it a square canvas and see if that works. You can actually still copy your image over so you don't have to draw it again. But go ahead and test that out. Yeah, CC used a 3K by 3K canvas. Maybe I was wrong that the canvas size does matter for this. So this is why we get to test this out together. So
I
if yours
wonder
is
what we'll
appearing
break
a little
today.
bit squished, I know, right? But that's good. That means that we won't do that again. So go ahead and try using a square canvas and report back. Tell us if that works. We're going to do another one, so don't worry. We will do this all over again. We'll get another one in. So now that I'm in here, there's really only a couple of things that I want to alter. And one of those is in the properties. So the second from the bottom, I want to make sure that oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I got distracted and I forgot to save my my shape. So I have to go do that again. If you did that and didn't save, you can go back and just go back to shape, edit, import, paste. And then you have to click done. That's what I forgot to do. You got to click done. All right. And now you should see your image right there. So you're going to want to go to properties And here, what I like to do is increase the maximum size and just make it as big as possible. I really want to make sure that I don't just have I don't just have a small sheet of paper, but I can make it as big as I want if I want to. And then the other option that I want to edit here is the preview. So third from the top, the preview is what you're going to see in your brush library. And this is something that we might need to fine tune a little bit once we get back out into our brush library. But for now, I'm going to set mine at 15 and see how that goes. And the last thing you're going to want to do is go to About the Brush. And this is a fun part because you can sign your name and be like, I made this brush. You can import a photo, and this is where you change the name of the brush. So up at the top, I see Drip 2. I'm just gonna press on that. This took me the longest time to figure out. I was like, where do I change the name of the brush? But it's right there. It's sneaky, but you can change it. I'm gonna just call mine Paper. And then the create new reset point is actually pretty important because right now this is still the drip brush. That's what the brush remembers itself as because that's what it was originally. So by creating a new reset point, I'm saying that this brush is now going to reset at this paper. This sheet of paper is what I would like this brush to reset. So if I make any modifications to it and I have gone too far, I can always reset this brush to right here. Oh, the name change is right up top here, Tim. It's super sneaky. So it's an About the Brush. And then the title is just, I renamed mine to Paper. Yours should say Drip 1 or 2, and you just press on that, and then you can change the title there. All right. And that is it. So you get what I'm saying, where once you get the hang of this, you can create these really fast. And then you have to hit done. And before I do that, I'm going to explain the reset brush once more. So the reset point is whenever you create a brush and you come into the brush studio and you're like, ooh, I want to play with all these settings. And then you take it a little too far and you're like, I didn't want to do that. You can, depending on when you set your reset point. So if I set it right here, it would take me back to this point. So it's like the grand undo. If I feel like I do not like the changes that I've made, then I can go back to the original that I set it at, which is right here. I hope that's helpful. Excellent. Okay, let's click done. And this is the fun part where we get to test it out. So now I can see my icon is in my brush library. And you can see that it's a little bit cut off. Let's go ahead and fix that now if you're having that issue. The way that we're gonna navigate that is you're gonna tap on the brush again to go back into the brush studio. And we're gonna go back to properties where we had that preview slider, and I'm just gonna make it a tad bit smaller. So now I'm at 10%. And I'm gonna click done and see where I'm at. So now my preview, that looks pretty good. I can fully see what the icon is. Okay, now we get to test it out. So I'm gonna create a new layer and I'm gonna hide my previous layer by unchecking that little box next to it. And let's see, I wanna make sure I have the brush selected, there it is. And I have a lighter color than my background. I'm gonna bring down the size of this so it's not a huge piece of paper. So I have it almost right in the middle. And then all you do is tap on your screen. And you should be getting your image. And you can make as many of these as you want. Not only that, but you can make them in different colors. So you can select a different color. You can kind of drag it across and do some fun effects. You can change the size of it. But now this is an icon that you have in your library and can use it anytime you'd like. If you don't want it to be in this folder with your other spray paints, the way that you create a new folder is by going up to the very top of your brush library. You can hit that plus bar and then create a new folder. So you might call that icons or whatever you want to call it. And then I would take my icon from the spray paints folder and just long press and drag it over to the icons folder. And I have to wait until the folder actually opens until I drop it. So it's not just a drag and hold it over the folder. You have to actually, the folder has to open and then you can drop it once you're in there. Angela, I'm with you. I'm so in love with this process. Excellent. Yeah, I know.
When I found, do that again?
Can we do that? Can we do the brushes again? One more? Or wait, Lori, what
Not
was
the whole
it?
thing, just how you dragged it up into its own.
How I dragged
things.
it up. Absolutely. Yes. So if I go back to my spray paints, I'm going to just drag the drip brush here. I long press with my finger, not your pencil, with my finger. So I long press on the brush and then I drag it over to the folder I want, and then I hold it over the folder until it opens and I can drop it once I'm in the folder. Okay, I'll do this one more time. I'm long pressing on the brush. I'm going to take this back to spray paints, holding it over the folder, and then once I'm in the folder, I'm dropping it. Okay, Jeanette, I see I still can't change the name about this brush. Okay, let's, I see Andrea dropped in some guidance there. So yep, changing the name is in about the brush, and then you just click up top here. And this is actually, let's see, they won't let you edit that for the original Procreate brushes. So you have to create a copy just like we did, and then you can change the name. So in about the brush, you're gonna just click on the name at the top. I remember trying to find tutorial videos about that because I was like, where do I change the name? All my stamp brushes were just called Drip 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyways, it's sneaky, but it's there. How do you resize it? On your canvas, you just use the slider here. How you would make a brush bigger or smaller. So you just use this slider here. So I have this nice banner that I made as a stamp brush. I mean, I have a whole folder of stamp brushes that I use all the time. Like I use this map so often, I don't want to have to redraw it every time. So I just created a stamp brush of it, the little computer icon that I use. So this is one of those things that you just do on a rainy day, or, you know, take an hour and you can really churn through a bunch of these.
And Malgosia, somehow I got my hands on those stamps. Did I pay for those, or were you just being nice and sharing them? But how did I get those?
You have them. I don't know. The big thing is that you have them. I don't remember.
I got them somehow.
I feel like you were probably a good Samaritan and you did a download.
I thought you had them on the Gumroad thing if you wanted to put a plug-in for that. So you can get
Oh,
these.
and I will actually be sharing 2 of those with all of you. So I'll
Super.
grab 2 of my stamp brushes and share those with all of you after the session. So Brian, I'll send those over to you, and then you can share those with everybody. So you can have 2 of those brushes. I'll probably share the 2 that you see on the screen, the computer and the map, just because those are 2 common ones that I use all the time.
Cool.
And I know I said I would do another, but I'm looking at time and I just want, or wait, we're going till, we still have time. Okay, good. I thought we were going till half after. So I wanted to make sure we got to your questions. Let's go ahead and just do one more, so you get in the rhythm of it. And again, we're gonna go through the same process we went through, but I think it's always helpful to just do another one just so you kind of really remember all the steps. So I already have my background. I don't need to worry about that. You don't need to create a new canvas. You can just create a new layer. One thing that I really like about working on these layers is that if I don't want to have to erase what I have on my page, if you just click on the layer, there's an option to clear your layer. And so sometimes when I've named my layers and I don't want to have to go back through and name them again, I will just clear the layer and then I have that layer ready to go and I can draw right on it. Okay, let's do another one. Question for after, absolutely. And we will go over making a new folder when we create this next one, Phil, so we will get to that as well. And these can be used for making pattern design. It's so cool what you can do with these. Really, the options are unlimited. So it's really fun to see what people have created with these. Okay, I'm gonna draw a face just because I feel like it's fun to have a little person in your icon library. And so I'll just guide you through how I draw faces, and then you can draw whatever you'd like. Just make sure that you're not on a stamp brush. I've done that before where I go to write and it's actually a stamp brush. So I'm gonna grab my dry ink brush. And the way that I draw faces, I start with the letter U, make 2 little dots for eyes. I'm gonna do, let's see, I'm gonna do a little upside down U for a nose. Lots of fun different ways to make noses. And just faces are a lot of letter U's. Like the ears are like a sideways letter U. Lots of letter U's for faces. The ears I usually put right in between the eyes and the nose. And then I'm gonna draw the neck, just kind of 2 curved lines, maybe some diagonal lines for shoulders, and a V or something, or another U. Here's where we could throw in another U. I feel like how many U's are in a face. And then the hair, let's see what I'm feeling today. I kind of want maybe something like this with these bangs. Maybe some longer hair. I cut my hair short, so I'm kind of craving longer hair sometimes. All right, the hair is really where make it your own. It's just a nice face. All right. I'll just leave it at that. And I'm gonna again move this so it's right in the middle of my page, finding that spot. And then I might make it a little bit bigger as well. Hey, Brian, did that fix the squishiness of your stamp, changing the canvas size?
Yeah, it did. That worked great.
Okay, cool. So that's it. Make sure that you're working on more of a square canvas rather than a rectangular canvas. Okay, so once you have your drawing, 3 fingers, swipe down, make a copy. Okay, now I'm going to open up my brush library and go to my spray paints. Make a copy of the drip brush by swiping to the left. And duplicate that and tap on it to open the brush studio. Go to shape, edit, and import, and then paste. Oh, mine's looking a little squished too. I think that's because I have a rectangular canvas. Let me fix that real quick. So a way that you can do this without even exiting your canvas is by going to your actions, the little wrench icon, going to canvas, crop and resize. I'm just going to crop this into a square. That's good enough. Okay. I'm just going to make sure it's still copied, and back to the brush library we go. Okay, shape, edit, import, paste. Better. Yeah, it's totally, you definitely want to make these on a square canvas. Good to note. and then done. So it saves, there it is. And if you haven't tried out this drawing pad, by the way, you can, this is where you can like test out your brush on this drawing pad off to the side. I thought that was like just a preview of the brush until I clicked on it, and then I was like, oh, I can actually draw on this. Whoops. So pretty cool. That's where you can test out your brush, especially if you're playing around with it and you want to see like, if I make the scatter all crazy, is that going to affect it? Look at that. It's going upside down. It's going everywhere. Definitely going to bring that down, and you can test it by, that's really, that kind of makes my head hurt a little. But so the drawing pad here is where you can test out your brush. So what we want to edit here is we want to go to properties, increase the maximum size, and decrease the preview size. I'm going to stick with 10%. And then the last tab here about the brush, change the name. This will be, I'm going to call her Girl with Bangs. You can sign your name if you want. I'm going to create this as the new reset point. Save it. And then you got to click done at the top. There she is. Yeah, Lori, good comment there. If you, for the last brush that you made, you can just use that. You can make a copy of that. So you don't have to make a copy of the drip brush every time. I could just make a copy of this icon and then build from there. Absolutely. So now let's just test this out. I'm going to open up a new layer and bring the size down a little bit, and bam, there it is. Excellent. I know this is like one of those things that it never gets old for me. I'm like, every time I'm just like, I love this. So I've been working away. Every time I draw something, I save it into a folder that I keep in Procreate, and then once every so often I'll go into that folder and I'll make all of those drawing stamp brushes, so that I really have I can save all of my drawings. I still draw things live all the time, but I kind of like having a library of my drawings. It's nice to see the evolution of how things go, and it's also super convenient when I need to draw something really fast and I just don't have time to make it, to either draw it or to make it look like the way I want it to look. So stamp brushes are fantastic. Let's address some of the questions that were in here about the new folder. Phil, let's just get you a new folder. So you're going to scroll up to the very top of your brush library. It's kind of sneaky. You won't see it unless you kind of scroll to the very top. There's that plus button. And you're going to click on that, and it's going to create a new folder there that you can name. The top on the folder side, not the brush side. Yes. Okay. I didn't get that for a second, but yes, absolutely. Andrea, you're 100% correct. It's not when you're in the brush. It's not here. It's where the folders are. Good call. Okay. Top 10 stamp designs. Ooh, that's a good question. I think it really depends what kind of work you're doing and what industries you work with most often. Let me open up the ones that I made that I use all the time, and I'll just demo those real quick so you can see some of the ones that I have. And I do have this as an icon stamp pack that you can grab. So I made 3 different bullets that I use all the time. I use this circle bullet. I wanted them to all look uniform when I was using them. So I made this circle bullet. I also made this little drop pin bullet. Oop, that's really big. This drop pin bullet, and I made a star bullet because that was one that I use quite often as well. So I would suggest making some bullets that you use and just want to have those on hand. That's definitely one. I also made banners. So I really like using this kind of banner. And the way that I got this color fill is when I was drawing, I used 2 different layers. And the one, so I had the drawing, the actual banner with the white line as one layer. And then I did a color fill underneath it, and I reduced the opacity down. So it was lighter, still white. I'm not using a different color there. It's still a white. I still used a white color for that color fill. I just reduced the opacity. And the way that you do that to reduce opacity when you open up a layer, it's this N. It's this little N in the corner, and then there's opacity right there. So that's how you reduce opacity. So I reduced the opacity, and then I merged the 2 layers before making a copy of them. And that's how you can get shading in your stamp brushes. Like you see the shading that I have behind the bullets that I have. So I'm just starting by working on 2 different layers and then merging those together. So I made a couple of stamp brushes for different banners that I use. Especially this one. I love this one, but sometimes it's a pain to draw it in the moment. It's just one of those that you want to have nice and even. Oh, this one's even trickier sometimes to nail this. So I definitely wanted to make a stamp brush of those and just have that available. So bullets and banners are a really good place to start. And then I went to thinking about some of the icons that I use the most often. And I draw the map icon all the time. So I made one of those, and I made it in 3 different kind of flavors. I made it in a blank map so that I could add whatever I wanted to it. I also made a map with a little trail. So it looks like there's already something on it. And then lastly, I made one with a drop pin. So I wanted one that I could, I wanted to have those 3 different kinds that I could play with. And then I also made a computer icon, and oh, I made the clouds. I draw clouds all the time, and I just wanted to have 3 that I could reference and have available whenever I needed them. So clouds was something that I was excited to make, so I could just easily make clouds in the sky by just clicking my pencil around on the screen. So those are good ones to start with. Okay, I think we've covered stamp brushes. Hopefully that's something that maybe isn't new, but you've added a couple new ones to your icon library, or this is something that you've just learned about and have fun. This is one of those things that will keep you entertained for a while. I want to make sure that we have time for other questions. I saw a question earlier about the quick menu, and I can definitely go over that. But any other questions that you all have? I will start with the quick menu. Yeah, Angela, go for it.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, just always make sure. But this is really mind-blowing for me. I asked the question a little earlier about pattern design because that's something that I'm interested in, surface design, and I definitely see with some of the pre-made brushes that there are patterns in it, but I have no idea how to make them.
Ah, okay. So you can do it in a similar way to what we just did, where you can draw your own pattern and then copy it and make it into a stamp. Or one way that you can do it is when you go into, like if I go to, let's see, the industrial folder, and I'm gonna click on the rusted decay brush. A good thing to do is to study the brushes that are already in your library, because they will give you the code of how that brush was made. So you'll see that the spacing was increased here, but really what they did is instead of importing, and they still imported a shape, but they imported the grain. So the grain is where you will get the pattern of, this kind of rustic looking splotched kind of pattern. So that's where you can use a photo. But again, you want to remember that it has to be inverted. So it's got to be on a dark background, and you got to work with a light. You got to make sure that the pattern is a light color, and that it's not attached to the background, if that makes sense. So you can make a copy of it and then add it in here. Same process, you just hit edit here and then import. And you can even import a photo or a file. So you can go through that process here. The patterns in your first 3 examples. Judith, tell me a little bit more about which examples. The first stamp brushes?
No, that was at the beginning of your presentation when you showed us the 3 examples. One was Amanda.
Oh, I see.
And you had like a ribbon. Yeah, what is that, through brushes, or did you painstakingly draw those patterns?
Oh, the flow lines.
Yes.
These.
Yes.
Oh, I painstakingly draw these.
Okay.
I do. I know. I've thought about creating a brush out of this, but what I enjoy about it's actually I used to hate doing it because I was like it's pretty tedious, but now I've found that it's actually it's like a very zen time for me where I just turn on a podcast and I love making these little lines. So it is very meditative. It's sometimes the reason why I haven't made it into a brush is because I really like for the text or for the lines to wrap around the text. Like they go perfectly around the text, and it's very hard to get that in a brush. How many layers in the Amanda Gorman piece? Good question. I'd have to look. I don't have an exact answer. And I realized I cropped my canvas, which was a silly mistake. I'm just gonna get back my canvas size real quick. And I'm just, by the way, to do a massive undo, I'm just long pressing with 2 fingers on my screen. So I'm just pressing 2 fingers on my screen, and I will undo all of the things until I get my canvas back, which I feel like I have at this point. Yep, there it is. Okay. The only time you cannot do that is when you go back out to the gallery. In Procreate, that's how it saves your canvas. So whenever you go back out to the gallery, Procreate's like, okay, cool, I'll save whatever you just did. And then when you go back into it and you try to undo, Procreate's like, sorry, no can do. So the Amanda Gorman piece was probably, the flow lines are a separate layer. The text is a separate layer. There's some, there's an effect that I did on the text where I did that kind of gradient. So that's a separate layer. The drawing and the drawing is its own layer. The photo is its own layer. And then the title is about 3 layers probably with the applications of the colors onto it. So I don't know, was anyone counting? I don't know how many that equates to, probably more than 10. Largest canvas size I've ever created. I definitely try to work at 300 DPI, but these canvases above are probably some of the biggest that I've gone. Good question. I usually work at 24 by 8 inches. That's probably the top canvas size is 24 by 8. So that's a nice kind of long rectangle, kind of mimics a big sheet of paper on the wall. What was the feature that got you back to, oh, that got me back to using Procreate? Yeah, because I left Procreate for a while and I was like, nah, I'm leaving. The one feature that got me is the project canvas, this one, because I am moving around I'm zooming in and out on my screen right now, and you don't see that. You don't see my tools right now. So if I don't have project canvas on, you can see me working on my canvas. And the reason I like that is because when I'm doing digital graphic recording, I don't necessarily want people to always see me working, especially because I've noticed that I zoom in and out a lot. I zoom in to write legibly, and then I zoom out to kind of see where I am on the page. And it is an equation for getting people to have motion sickness. So the project canvas mode is the one feature that got me back. And then Procreate just really took off. And they started, the other reason actually is because they really listened to the needs and the wants of the users. So I have written to Procreate, they respond back to you really fast after you write to them. So if you have something that you really want them to do, you can write to them. And you can say, hey, I really want this feature. Like I really wanted to access my colors faster. And they created this feature. And I'm not saying I did this, but they made it easier to access your colors so that you don't have to constantly open up your color palette. There's that little bar at the very top of your colors. And if you just drag that down, you can have your colors floating on your screen. So again, if I go up to my colors, it's subtle. It's that little bar at the top. I'm just going to drag it onto my screen. I'm not even doing a long press. I'm just dragging it onto my screen. I know, Lori, I feel you. And it gets better. Not only that, but you can swipe through all your color palettes right there.
Nice.
And you can access like the other ways of getting your colors. And again, when I turn on project canvas mode, you don't see that, but it's there on my screen. So it's probably the fastest way of accessing your colors other than doing a long press. But to have multiple colors, I would say that's one of my favorites. Okay, I'm going back through. I just want to make sure I get to all your questions. I should put my glasses on real quick here. Hold on for just 1 second. Okay. Oh yes, the larger your canvas, yeah, you got to be careful because then you have to navigate layers, which is, you have to like make a trade. You're like, which ones am I willing to merge together? So absolutely, the larger your canvas size is and the higher your DPI is, which stands for dots per inch. So that has to do with resolution. Since Procreate is pixel based, then you do have to navigate with less layers. And they'll tell you how many layers you have based on the canvas size that you create. They'll say like, you have 24 layers. And you're like, okay, I got to be smart about this. How do you create the gradient fills lettering? Awesome, let's do that. And then the next one I'm going to do, which was a question from before, was the quick start, the quick menu. And we'll see if we have some time left for some other questions. So let's talk about, this is like one of my favorite things to do on letters. Okay, let me get out of this and clear this layer here. And let's create some letters. So I'm gonna bring up, I use my big one marker all the time. It's one of my favorites. And I'm gonna create something in white text, and then I'm gonna do a gradient over it. So I'm just gonna write hi. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. You wanna make, I like to make the letters a little bit thicker, even thicker than that. So I can, just so you can see the gradient. Oops. Okay. So you can write anything. Tim, that's awesome. I'm so happy you like them. And to get that gradient, I'm just gonna center this on my page too. To get that gradient, you're actually gonna create a layer above it. So just go ahead and create a new layer. And if you haven't used a clipping mask yet, this is where we're gonna try this out. Clipping masks are awesome. So to create a clipping mask, and first of all, a clipping mask is a layer that's on top of a layer, and it will only write in the lines created on the layer below it. This will make sense once we do it, but just that's what a clipping mask is. So I'm on the layer above my my text, and I'm just going to click on the layer to get this menu. So I just tap on the layer, and then you'll see one of the options about halfway through is clipping mask. There's a lot of options in here, so fun to play around, but we're going to choose clipping mask. You know that it's on when there's a little arrow pointing down at the layer below it. That's when you know that there's a good clipping, that the clipping mask is on. Okay, so now let's go ahead and choose a fun texture. Let's see, I'm gonna go to textures, or maybe these are a little too extreme. I might just choose, let's see, what's one that I really like to use? The noise brush is pretty fun. This is in touch-ups. Let's see if there's something on. No, I'm going to use the noise brush. But use any kind of texture you want. This is where you can get with those patterns. So I'm going to click on the noise brush. Whoops, didn't want to open up the brush library. Again, make sure you're on your layer, your clipping mask layer, and choose a different color. So I'm going to choose this nice light blue, maybe. And then you're just going to start drawing on your text. And notice it will not go anywhere but the layers, but the text layer. So that's what the clipping mask does. And that's how I get that gradient. So I just draw on the text, and sometimes I'll blend this if I want it to have kind of a smoother look. So that smudge tool that you probably have maybe never used, I never used it. I was like, why do I need a smudge tool? This is this is where the smudge tool comes in, and you can just have a nice soft, you can add that nice soft gradient look to your letters. So that's how I get that nice, and you can layer on here. So if you want them to look a little lighter at the bottom, you can really play with this a lot. And again, the clipping mask is awesome. Like if you have a drawing and you don't want to draw in the background, you just want to fill in the drawing, that's what the clipping masks are all about. They're awesome. Thanks, Ashanti. Great to have you in here. Okay, I'm going to show you the quick menu because that is like a necessary thing. If you haven't established it, it's super, super important for doing live work, especially, or even studio work. It's just one of those things that helps you get into the tools that you use the most often. So you probably have seen this pop up on my screen a couple times. This is the quick menu. So you'll see what I have in here is some pre-populated, I mostly have pens in here. Actually, I only have pens in here, different brushes in here. I have the add text feature. So what this is, it's a menu that you can quickly pull up on your screen, and you can then pre-pop it with the tools that you use the most often. So the way that you access it is you go up to your actions, that wrench icon, and you're going to go to preferences and gesture controls. So I'll just hang out here for a second as you find your way here, preferences, and then gesture controls, third from the bottom. All right, and you'll see that there's all these features in here. This is actually a really good area to just comb through and make sure it's set up the way that you want it to be. And I'm going to go down to quick menu. And I have selected it as the Apple Pencil double tap. That's how I access my quick menu. It's not, you don't have to choose this one, but this is just the one that I found is the fastest for me to access. And it's a double tap on your pencil like this. You're tapping twice on your pencil. So, but you can choose any other option here. There's tapping that little box that's right in between the opacity and the size of the brush on the side of your Procreate window. So there's a couple of different ones. Go ahead and just choose the Apple Pencil double tap, and you can always change it back, but just so that we have the same one, go ahead and select that one, click done, and then come back out to your main screen. Yeah.
And Malgosia, is that a physical double tap on the pencil itself?
Physical double tap.
Yeah.
Not on your screen, not anywhere else on your pencil. You're double tapping with your finger.
Gotcha. Thank
So
you.
that will pull up, yep, of course, that'll pull up this menu. And I remember when I first set this up, I was tapping on my screen. I was doing a double tap on my screen. I was like, where is it? So it is on your pencil. And the way that you pre-pop these is by doing a long press, or sorry, you don't, no, it is a long press. It's a long press, and I would recommend doing that with your finger. Sometimes if it's with your pencil, we'll just mistake that that's what you want. And it will give you all these options. So I'm already in my brushes, but it will ask you to set the action. There's a lot in here, so just kind of navigate through all the different options. Again, I chose my brushes. That's what I really want access to. So I went to select brush, and then I chose different brushes in here. So I have my bullet nib, I have my big one, I have the dry ink brush. Those are the main ones that I have in here. And then I have the add text feature, because sometimes I like to just have that available and like to add text quickly on the page. And it takes a couple clicks to get to the add text. So that's why I added it into my quick menu. One of the things that you see in here is I have 2 bullet nib brushes. The reason for that is because the quick menu remembers the size that you left your brush at. So if I hit that top bullet nib and I make it 26, nope. Hold on for 1 second. Okay, let's get the share screen back up.
Malgosia,
Yeah.
how do you access that quick menu again? I think I missed a step.
Yep, no worries. I will show you that in 1 second. There we go, we're back. You all can see that? Yeah? Okay.
It's
Yep.
loading. Give it a second.
Okay. Still loading?
Still loading.
Okay. I got this back up, so let's just switch over. Nothing like a tech glitch. Has to happen.
There it is.
It's not a true virtual session without it. There we go. Okay. How do I get the quick menu to pop up? That's where we went into the gesture controls in your actions tab here under preferences, and then gesture controls. Quick menu is one of the options there in your sidebar. And then I have it selected as the Apple Pencil double tap. And if you select that and click done, when you double tap your Apple Pencil, you'll see that menu pop up. So I was going over why I have 2 bullet nib brushes in here, and that's because you can keep the size. So this one I'm setting at 40, and let me make sure I'm on the right layer. I was on my clipping mask layer, which again, if you write on that and it's not on the lines of the layer underneath it, it just doesn't appear. So here we go. This is at 40. And then I'm going to go to my bullet nib underneath it, and I'm going to set that at, I don't know, 15. And what I love about this is when I'm doing live capture, and I really don't use a lot of brushes when I'm doing live capture. It's just too much. I usually use 3 brushes max, but I change the size of them to give hierarchy on the page. So now when I open the top bullet nib brush, this is where I have a larger font size. And when I go back to that smaller one, I have a smaller size, and it's right there. It is really fast to access. It's a double tap and a click, and then I'm in, you know, this kind of bigger font size. And when I do a double tap and click the smaller one, I'm in the smaller size, and it saves that. So the way that I got 2 of those bullet nib brushes is I just duplicated one. So I have 2 in my brush library. You actually have to duplicate the brush, because when you go to select it here, see I have bullet nib thick and bullet nib medium. So those are 2 separate brushes in my brush library. I just made a copy of my bullet nib, and I named them 2 different things, so I knew which was which. And that is like one of the things I use the most often in Procreate, honestly, is this quick menu. It's just really nice to have a way to alternate in between my brushes. If I need to use my bullet nib, it's just all right there. Very easy. very easy to go back and forth. All right. I need to pull up the chat here. There it is. Double tap on pencil still does not work. If it doesn't, I would try a different gesture to access your quick menu. Yeah, Brian.
If the double tap's not working, I had the problem where I was unintentionally starting the eraser, and you may double off in the add settings. So you'd have to get out of Procreate and get into
Oh,
the pencil
yes.
settings for that. Because if I drink
Got
too
it.
much coffee, I tremble a little bit. I end up switching things around, you know.
Yeah, the eraser is, you want to just make your way through all of your other settings and make sure something else isn't selected for that, so that you don't have something else that has the Apple Pencil double tap. Check that out and see if that helps. The glove that I'm using is the Artica Glove. I can send a link out to you all. It was like $5. Any glove like this really works. The brand is, I wouldn't say as relevant. It just, this is one of those things that I was like, I don't know if I really need this, but now I will not record without it. It's just when it gives you that smooth glide across the page. So I love this thing. I know I could keep doing this with you all for we could keep going and talking about Procreate. I know we're at time. It's hard to step away because I know we got good questions in here, but I also want to respect everyone's evening. And it was so lovely to get to be here with all of you and get to learn together.
Well, Malgosia, thank you so much for your time. That was awesome. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And this has just been so chock full of stuff. We should have had more time for you to do this. I can't wait to go back and take a look at the recording. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's give Malgosia a big
Excellent.
NOVA Scribes thank you. All right.
Thanks everybody. So great.